Okay, I made these pictures just for something. You don't have to need a picture of the bed. Mimi and the key. Nevertheless, let's go. We're painted Gimel, Halacha, Yud Zayin. The bottom of page went down. That's what we're painted Yud Gimel, Halacha, Yud Zayin. That's what we're okay? It says, Mizbeach HaKedes. It was Mizbeach that we use for incense, for potatoes. Oyim Merubah, it was a square. Ama, cubit by cubit. The Hunasin, the Heichel, it sat in the Beis Habechirah. Mechuven, it was a line in between Bein Hatzaf and the Dada, between the north and the south side. Moshuch drawn a little bit forward towards the east. Bein HaShulch HaMizbeach, between the Shulch and the Beis. Now, when we did pay the Galas, and I'm not going to, if anybody wants old pictures, I gave out pictures of the Menei. In this picture, I gave out this picture last week. You can see it. The Shulchan is in the north, to the left, the Menei to the south, and the Mizbeach in the second half of the room, drawn a little bit forward, closer to the front. So it's not directly between them, it's between them, but forward. Or Shloshtan and all three of them, Menachem was sitting Mishlish HaHeichel, in the last third of the Heichel. Connected Abrechet opposite the curtain, Hamachel, which separates Ben Kedesh and Kedesh HaKadosh, into the Holy of the Holy of. In other words, when you walked into the Heichel in Bayis Sheni was a very large room. Very, very large. It was 40 amas by 20 amas by 40 amas. The height was 40, the length was 40, and the width was 20. Amas. An amma is about a foot and 2/3. You understand? So it's 40 times 1.67. It's like 76 feet length from east to west, top to bottom, and it was half of that from north. That's a huge room. I mean, I don't know how big this room is. It's a gigantic room. And the room was empty. The last third of the room had three tables, three pieces of furniture. Otherwise, the room was empty. This was there. I mean, it's now close to the west. You entered from the east, right? The back of the room, correct? Yes. Now, I just want to sort of tell you, the Mizbeach HaKtev is a small little Mizbeach. They put Ketevs on the Mizbeach every single day twice, in the morning and in the evening. And there was a very interesting halacha about the Ketevs, which was worth mentioning. To get the schus to burn the Ketevs, you had to join what was called a pious. Pious means a goydel, a lottery. The way the pious for the Ketevs worked was this. Once you did the Ketevs once in your life, you were never allowed to enter the pious again unless every single coin in your Beis did it. That's how it was done. So in theory, you could say that a person, unless it was again Godel, the Ketevs, ain't no lemon. You understand? Once in your life. Because when you were a young kohen, you joined this pious. You stayed in the pious until you got your turn. And then you never rejoined the pious unless there was not a single kohen who hadn't done it yet. And remember, they were divided up into 24 mishmaros. Each mish was divided up into 7 batayat. You worked the Beis Hamikdash one day out of every 24 weeks. Dude. So there was enough time for that family to have babies that were growing up, that were coming into the ranks of the Fuhuna. But you could almost say that Ketevs was mamish once in a lifetime. The Kohanim, Kabbalahs, or the rest of the time. First of all, it says in Chumash. I don't know what this is not working. Yeru mishpatecha l'yayin, there's a special halacha, which is good to know. That the Rashi says about Beis Habechirah, that it's very appropriate that the Rabbonim should be kohenim and levim. The Rabbonim, Sanhedrin. Talmidei Chachamim who pass in Shilas should be for the family of the Kohen. It says in Parshas says the Bracha, Hashem Levi, Yoyru Mishpatecha LeYainke V'Seroslo L'Yisrael. So Rashi says that even though to be a member of the Sanhedrin was good from any shaving, but there was a special Indian that there should be Kohen in the Levim. The Kohen in the Levim should be Talmidei Chachamim. They didn't work. They were provided for by the community. In the Beis Hamikdash, they worked very infrequently. They did other things. Anyway, so this was the thing. The Ketuvim was a very rare opportunity. And Kohen waited their whole life for the chance. And it was also very dramatic. Why? Because you went in the law. So it says in Pashas Acharei, by Yom no one's allowed to be in the Beis Hamikdash when the Kohen goes into the Holy Hamikdash. This was true every day. When the Kohen went to do the Ketuvim, he went by himself. So he never did it before because he has no experience. There's nobody there to help him. He's likely never to get a chance to do it again after he fumbled the first shot. Kohen didn't get a chance. It was like a moment of intimacy between the Kohen and the Eibush. There was nobody in the room with that Kohen. In fact, the halacha was not only was nobody allowed to be in the room together with the Kohen doing the Ketuvim, nobody could be in the adjacent room. In other words, the Kohen had to be alone with Hashem. No one was with him in that room, and no one was nearby. That's how it was on Yom Kippur. When the Kohen goes to one of the Kodesh HaKadosh was to clear out of the Heichal. And every day when they did the Ketuvim, had to clear out what was called Bein Ha'ulam V'Lam Mizbech. It was a very exclusive avodah. It was the holiest and the deepest and the most peaceful avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. It was Hakadosh HaKetuvim. And you know where it says in Hasidus, it's based on Targum, that the word Keter, Kuf Tes Reish, in Aramaic is the same as the word Kesher, Kuf Shin Reish in Hebrew, which means to tie together. Ketuvim is an act of bonding. It was a very, very special avodah. It was done in a small little mizbeach. It was kept very clean. It was used for nothing else. Once a year on Yom Kippur, the Kohen used to sprinkle some blood on this inner mizbeach. But aside from that, it had one use and one use only. And like I said before, they did it twice every day. Every day. Okay, anyway. Next halach, Hakiyah. That's right. That's right. Actually, not only the Ulam, Bein Ulam is there. Bein Ulam is there. The Ulam didn't really, right. The Ulam didn't count as a separate group. They couldn't go west behind. How much time did the Ketuvim take? You couldn't go on the Ulam side of the Mizbeach, right? On the western side of the Mizbeach, it didn't take a lot of time. That day, there was, that's right, there were 24 mishmaris. Right. And once you won once, and never went in again, until there was no other way. The mishmaris were a week. But each mishmar was divided into 7 b'liyah. So you served one day during that day. Some families. It was considered a week because Lachem HaKodesh they would divide amongst the entire family. But every sub-family got one day during that week. So they worked the Beis Hamikdash not a lot. Yom Tov. The Sholosh should go and any Kohen could come and do a Moed. That was halakha. But besides for Yom Tov, you only, and you come every day. The Kohen come every day. The rules were there was mishmaros during Yom Tov as well. But any Kohen that wanted to come to the Holy Hamikdash. But besides for that, you work one day after 24 weeks. Right. And there's a whole bunch of complicated halachas. What belonged to that mishmar and what belonged to any Kohen you wanted. The base up, yeah. That day. Halacha Yates. Hakir, the water base. It had 24 faucets. 12 faucets. By the way, in the midbar it had 4. Because it says in the Pasuk, Barachat Tzadimenu, Moshe, Aaron, and Ron. Moshe and Aaron and his 2 sons, another one, could all wash at the same time. In the Beis Hamikdash, the water basin has 12 doesn't need faucets. Today, why the number 12? Sheyiyu Pedic Gimel Halacha Yuches. Sheyiyu Kol HaKoyin, so that all of the Koyin, Oiskim B'Kavod, who did the Kavod in the morning, B'Kachim Mimenu Ke'echad, would wash their hands at once. You know, washing your hands in the kid was not a simple matter. You know how you did it? I couldn't do this if I liked it, but you took your hands, you placed them on top of your feet, touching. That's as good as I get. And you wash your hands and your feet together. You have to be in good shape to. So somebody else turned on the faucet. I don't think the water was running. You had to wash your hands. So there's enough room. All 12 kayanim who did avoid the Talmud to wash their hands at once. Now it's a very interesting halakha. I made you a picture. I took a picture out of a sefer. Why? I was in the mood of giving you a picture to give you a picture. Here, this is how the keel looks. You'll see that it's quite decorative, and it's meant to have 12 faucets. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can count 6 faucets in this picture. You can assume that you have to look. Muchni means a machine. Muchni, M-A-C-H-N-O, yeah? It's Latin. Muchni is a Hebrew for machine. It's the same word. Muchonah means a machine. It's a Latin word, it's not a Hebrew word. And of course, it was mechanical, and they didn't have electricity in those days, but they had pulleys, they had gears, they had mechanical systems. Also, they made the water becomes over. Muchni basically means there's a pulley system. So you have 2 pictures of the kid, an upper picture and a lower picture. The kid sat in the Azara, and the floor was open. You see the floor under the kid was open. These 2 poles supported gears that would lift the kid out of the water and the floor would be placed underneath. Every evening before the shir, they would open up the floor, they would lower the kid back in under the ground. Why? Because the kid still had water. If the water would stay in the kid overnight, in the morning it would be possible. And then you have a whole problem with fixing. You have to get rid of the water, you have to tie the kid. So in order to solve this problem, they had a very simple solution. The whole night, the kid and the water inside were toivel in the Mei HaShiloach, which ran under the Beis Hamikdash. So the water was Mayim Chayim. It was kosher Mayim Chayim. It wasn't a kosher mikveh from rain. It was a fountain, a Meyer. Mayim Chayim. When you pull the tear of water out of this hole, in the morning it was fresh water, because the halacha is, this is especially somebody becomes tummy, you go to the mikveh. A keli becomes tummy, you go to the mikveh. What happens if food becomes tummy? Eat it with tummy, you throw it in the ground. It's not tired of the food. I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about tummy. What happens if you have wine that was touched by this tummy? With one exception. You could be mitahed mayim. The only oichel l'mashia, which is a din of, you can toivel it in a mikveh, you take water which became tummy, and it's sitting in a pot, and you toivel it in a mikveh, when the waters of the pot join with the waters of the mikveh, they become tummy. And that's what they did with the tear. That's what this mechanism was. They lowered it into the ground every evening, and they pull it out in the morning, and they did a couple with the water. Okay? The he choy. And this mechanism, this mechanical system, was not pipe. It was not a cliche. Today, Shalei Yihi Yamayim, the one from the leaders, so that the water's image did not become possible because they were staying overnight. Shahakiyah, the water basin itself is a holy cake. The mechanics, when you put the water into the klishares, the water becomes holy. The chalav, as she is gathered with klishares, when something is made holy with the kedesh, if it stays overnight in that kedesh, nisa becomes possible. So to offset that problem, they would basically lower the kid under the ground using this mochnik, and it would mix in the waters of the mikveh, and the water. Okay, so I made for you, I took this message, a picture of the shulchan, and a picture of the kid, just for fun. Okay? Now there's another page over there. I mean, this is, the back side of the sheet is probably what you're going to need for tonight anyway. But I made a second sheet just going for it. Does anybody want to ask any questions, make any comments? It was a Maya. It was a Maya. On top of the Beis Habechirah. Right. The Chazal say, Rashi mentioned it often, Beis Habechirah. It says, "Chen sheirei hadadei, kani lehem kano, ein lecha yofa b'sher yesen sefer." I don't understand in animal beauty, but I'm a kappa maven in human beauty. Ein lecha yofa b'sher yesen sefer. The nicest part of the animal is the shoulders. The shoulders. What's the cap? It's not the highest point. The highest point of the shade is the head. The kisvayim, the shoulder, a little closer. So Rashi said, when you build the Beis Hamikdash, you wouldn't build the Beis Hamikdash with Geva Ha'ar. You would build it a little bit lower than Geva Ha'ar. It's the nicest part. Yes? I always think the highest point in ground height, at least in the neighborhood, is Carol's. So the president's gate is a little bit lower than when I walk up, I live at the bottom of the hill. I take these walks off. It's not what I'm thinking. Anyway, there was a reason why they did it. At the very top of Al-Mediyah, there was a fountain. Water came from under the ground. And this water was directed to flow directly under the ground. That's it went from west to east. It cascaded down the entire Al-Mediyah going eastward, and it ended up in the valley and the river outside Jerusalem. This was called Mayan Eke. And there's a whole oneness. They know exactly how the Azara, the Pack Azara was called Gimel Amos, that's 23 Amos beneath the top. Now, I don't know what it's called hydrodynamics. The laws of water. One of the laws of water is you can make water go back up. As long as it doesn't go higher than its source. In the Beis Hamikdash, there was a second floor. They had a room, this just had a head. Hey, this just by head, this just came up. It was a mikvah. The top of that mikvah was exactly 23 amos above the floor of that mikvah. How did they get the water in there? They used this system of hydrodynamics because the water came from Geva Ha'ar, it went down and it went back up because it wasn't higher than the Mayan Eight, than the highest point in the Hanabites, on the Hanabidi. You follow? It was water that was running down under the Azara, and when they needed, they were directed to different purposes. We discussed this before. That at night, when they wanted to wash the Azara, they would simply stop the output, the place the water running out, and the whole Azara would flood. They would fill the water like a pool, go stone. They would scrub it, and then they would open the output, and it would escape, the Azara would be clean. So they had this river that ran underneath it, a stream or a brook, underneath the Beis Hamikdash. That stream and brook, I believe, was used for this purpose also. They would brush a tiny bit using the mishri in this subterranean body of Mayan Chayim, so that the water would not become hostile. Questions? Without my glasses, I don't hear so well. I don't see at all. I don't hear so well. Hey, here we go. There was a stone. It sat in the Holy of Holies, on the western side, near the back. The audience sat, meaning to say, when you would walk into the Kodesh HaKadosh, the room was empty. The room was empty. Near the back of the room, there was a stone, a large stone, that was raised above the floor a little bit. Reimagine the evidence here, this massive rock. You know, the Muslims, in one of their two domes that have up there, the picture, a gigantic rock. That's how it was. There was a roof. There was a floor. The evidence you see was raised above the floor. It was a big rock. But it wasn't filling the room. It was above the surface of the floor. The autumn sat on that rock, which is why I saw it sorted. They say we do not agree to have something called the dome of the rock. A lot of people say that the dome of the rock is not the Kodesh HaKadosh, and that stone is not the image you see. Some people call it The highest point in Yerushalayim is called Eben HaToyei, the test of Ayin Yud. That's where people used to go to announce Aveda. You lost a lost object, or you found a lost object. You go to this place called Eben HaToyei. A lot of people claim that the dome, the mosque built over the rock, is the Eben HaToyei. The Eben Shasiyah protrudes just a little bit. I have a sefer at home where the guy writes that according to the Arizal, this Eben Shasiyah will never come up with the building. Never be covered. But Arizal said that the Eben Shasiyah will never be covered with a building. So he argues that the Eben Shasiyah is not underneath any kind of a dome. It's opposite the place where we daven. The place we Yidden daven today is the same place they davened for the last 2,000 years. And he argues that even though there's no buildings, there's no markers, you have to assume that they davened in that spot to this opposite face of Hakadosh. And he brings this Arizal who argues that the Eben Shasiyah was never built over. So the dome of the rock, the two mosques, the gold mosque, the silver mosque, wherever they are in Hanabayis, people must have stayed in these achos up. There's a lot of opinions about it. There's many opinions. That it's not the Eben Shasiyah. Bottom line is the Eben Shasiyah was a stone. A large stone. There was a little bit above the ground. That's all it was. And the Rambam continues. Who's the head of Gulf about that time? Come on. How many years ago we talked? 40 or 50? Really? And you give me this information and you can't give me a name. Yeah. That's so easy. Your husband can send me a detail. What's a message? It's like hear about it. Okay, right. Well, in front of the Chodim, there was someone in Matiyah. There was a jug of one that was saved and the stick of honey. Of course, we know there were other things also. We had the mice with the Chodim was taken. They put over there the gold gifts that the Kedusha were placed together. They also put the Shaman HaMishcha there, and the Urim and Tumim were also together. No, Eifet Pora I have a Shleshim HaKodes. Shaman HaMishcha lo have a Shleshim HaKodes. Eifet Pora I have a Shleshim HaKodes. Matiyah, yeah. That's correct. Ube'ez Shebono Shleimes Habayis. Because I'm more than the Chiddush of the Rebbe here. When Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis Habechirah, the Yada Shesefer Leichar and knew to the rest of be destroyed. Bana Boy Mokim. He built a second group. You know how the Rebbe learns it? He built two Kiddush HaKadoshim. Shlomo HaMelech built two rooms, one on top of the other, that both have the Kedusha of Kiddush HaKadoshim. One was on the surface and one was under the ground. Livneis Bay Ha'aretz, the high in the Ha'aretz, the Mata below, the Matmonius, in the hideouts. Amukes V'Akaltalis, that are both deep and wide. The Yeshua HaMelech, the king Yeshua, a little while before the curtain, seized the guns and gave instructions and it was hidden away. The marking in the place, Shabbat Shlomo, the son of the building. The name, as it says in the Apostle, again, he said to the Levim, that are the Levim that understand the Kol Yisrael, HaKadeshim HaShem, that are holy HaKadosh, knew with Harena came and placed the holy ark. Rabbi says, Shabbat Shlomo, in the house, the roof, built by Solomon, the son of David, the king of Israel. And he said, after you take the ark out of the Holy of Holies, and you're going to bury it, there will no longer be massive carrying on shoulders. So what did they carry on the shoulders? The holy ark. they were going to put the Aron HaKadosh away. There's no more Maaseh B'Kosov. Now, even though the Shem became the spirit of the so the Rebbe's word is Azor. It's not the Pshat that they were afraid the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed. And the Aron HaKadosh would be taken into prison, into captivity. So they buried it. It's the Pshat that there's two Kedesh HaKadoshim. There's an overt Kedesh HaKadoshim, there's a revealed Kedesh HaKadoshim, and there's a covert Kedesh HaKadoshim. There's a secret Kedesh HaKadoshim. And when Shlomo built it, HaKadosh both through. To make a long story short, the Aron HaKadosh to this day is sitting in the Kedesh HaKadoshim. But then not in the Kedesh HaKadoshim that we're able to see. It's the Kedesh HaKadoshim which is beneath the ground. It's a mighty Kedesh of the Rebbe. Shlomo was the Kaddish down the roof of the Kedesh HaKadoshim. And the Hemshech is in this spot. See from the Rebbe. Oh, these are very complicated process. When it's built like a Tzilah, there's one way from a Kiddush, and you want to add to it, there's different way from a Kiddush. They probably sprinkled blood, but this is complicated. The passion, and they sprinkled Shemen HaMishra, like you have in the Chubik, where they made the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishra. They sprinkled the blood, they sprinkled the Shemen HaMishra for 7 days, like I'm saying. Anyway, so the word of the Rebbe is as follows. When it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, there's 3 days. There's Churban, there's Gniza, and there's not even Gniza. There's a part of the Beis Hamikdash which can be destroyed. If the Beis Hamikdash should be destroyed, that's a proof that even when it's standing, it's in a madrega that it's only Churban. It's part of the world enough that a goy and goyish can't destroy it. The second one they can Beis Hamikdash, a goy can't destroy it. But a goy can cause it to go into hiding. The Aron HaKadosh is in this category. It was never destroyed, it was never exiled, but it was hidden away underneath the Beis Hamikdash. Another example for this is what's called the door, the Sha'aret. The Pasuk says in Eichel, then brings it in the Sichos. Kavu Sha'areh, when the Beis Hamikdash was being burnt, the door, the Sha'aret, went under the ground. And when Mashiach comes, the Beis of the Rebbe's famous Shiloh, the Paltiel, the Rambam, and Rashi, and Tosfos, who built the third Beis Hamikdash? So the Eibishter built it, we built it, and the Rebbe's Maskani is there's 4 different ways of explaining it. We do a little bit, and the Eibishter does a little bit. One of the ways of explaining the fact that Hashem does a little, and we do a little, but Hashem does the building in heaven, and we pull the doors out from under the ground, and we hang them on the door. This is one of the different infatim that the Rebbe explained. So the second madrega is Gniza. To be hidden away but not destroyed. The highest madrega cannot even be hidden away, and that goes on the Even Shesiyah itself. But the Rebbe says that Even Shesiyah is not only not destructible, it's not even woven, it's not even hidden. It's there and it's exposed, and what the guy Scheinberger writes in the Sefer that I have, they never even built a house over it. It's right there on the surface, but the Even Shesiyah cannot be covered over. When the Rebbe spoke this Sikh, this word, that there's 3 madregas. There's a madrega of Churban, there's a madrega of Gniza, and there's a madrega of not even Gniza. The Rebbe said that Abbayim of Lubavitch and Abbayim of Siyach Chabad are like the Even Shesiyah. They're revealed. This is what this is one of their favorite sources. The Rebbe said that the Siyach Chabad, like the Even Shesiyah, they're not destructible, they can't even be hidden away. This is the book. Anyway, this is the story of the Aron. How the Aron was hidden away. You wanted to say something. So I'm going to read on. I find myself screaming. I find myself screaming. Things are amazing. The Friedrich Rebbe once walked by on Fabrengen. The Friedrich Rebbe, who now pay attention to women. Fabrengen. And the Mashpia was screaming at the bar. So the Friedrich Rebbe walks by and he says, Hashem geprüft. Hashem geprüft. Did you try talking nicely first? They weren't screaming at him. Hashem geprüft. You scream at somebody, you stand up first, you talk to him like a bench. And he didn't listen. So you scream, Hashem geprüft. I'm screaming. Why am I screaming? There's a lot of voices. In the morning I don't scream. I don't even have prayer. should I waste it? Okay, let's see if we can not speak. There's another bucket for you to get amazing. They walk by a naked, and the mashpia they get Muslims. The mashpia was telling them everything that's wrong with them. So the Friedrich never said Muslims. Muslims. They waste our labor. The Friedrich never said to the mashpia, don't criticize them. They know themselves with the whole. In other words, they do enough self-criticism. Muslims. Don't give them Muslims. They know themselves with the whole. Anyway, here's just mice. Right to the text. They're not just mice, they're mice.
The first level which can be destroyed. So that the Canaan is set to go.
Caleb, now that's the house, the building. And Caleb made the package. I would say that the Derech HaTevah was taken to Rome and was melted down.
Centerfied in the Vatican.
Nobody who's been in the Vatican, I saw an article. It's just not true. People say it. Yeah.
And certain ones
Right, the auditor.
and
The door is double shoreha.
doors and not
Yeah, all those things.
Hold up.
Oh yeah, it's got in the Matrinus, Amuka is yeah. You know what went to Shema, you know the Gemara. The Gemara says that when the Beis Habechirah was burning, the Kohen went up on the roof. And they said, you gave us the keys to the Beis Habechirah. You gave us responsibility for the Beis Habechirah. Now you're taking the Beis Habechirah, they threw the keys. And a hand came and took it, and then they jumped into the fire. Right. The Nignazine, along with the oil, was hidden by the Adam, the stick of Adam, and blossomed on it. That's intended for the drug that held the man. The Shemen HaMishcha and the anointing oil. Shemen HaMishcha, they made good base dish. They made a very small amount of it, and it's never duplicated. Shemen HaMishcha is the same Shemen HaMishcha. Nation of Eight made the Mashiach comes. It's never duplicated. The original. But it's used very little and no some miraculous property. The whole angel is off by shading the second place. I think that these things were the same. Put in the two, even the order of the two. Shahayu by shading the second place. I think it's why you shoot. The Ruach HaKodesh did not respond to Ruach HaKodesh. Shenema, the way how you show them, they stopped asking. Shenema, as the Apostle says, I'm the main Kaden, when Mashiach comes, the Kaden is going to have the Milo of the Guru. The way how you ace and ace, the only reason they made the Guru is the Hashem trained them because they became have 8 garments. Today, Shalom Yahweh, the Guru to the back. And when we were children, we were the Kaden. We were Rashi. How does Rashi explain it? The Choshen HaMishpat was Ava Orke Bezeres Rofta. A half an hour this way and an hour this way, folded. Coffee. Right? Folded. So in the front you had the breastplate, Zeres by Zeres, and it was folded back. That's the puzzle. And into the Choshen they put as a wooden Basatu. So when you were children, it says, the little Chay that Rashi said, there was a gold plate. On this gold plate, they wrote shame on the page. It's the name of a church, not how to pronounce. They put it inside the fold, and the Kohen, when he was praying, the Choshen HaMishpat was wearing the Abish's name. And as a result, the Kohen was able to answer what we were doing. The halachas according to what discussed at length in Rambam were that you couldn't ask a personal question. If you asked personal questions, it wouldn't have been to get an answer. Personal questions you could ask only in number. All of the Tubim were asked only by the Melech or the Nasi, by the greatest people of the generation. And they used to ask questions of an idea to the whole cloud, to go to war or not go to war. The Rambam described that the Melech would stand behind the Kohen. The Kohen was facing away. And he would whisper his question in a very soft voice. The Kayan couldn't hear, and the letters would shine up. The Kayan would know what they mean. He was able to answer the letter. So again, as children, we were taught the Urim Tumim is the plate. The gold plate went into the phone. The Rambam was the do. The Rambam's opinion is that the Urim Tumim is the Choshim. The breastplate is called Urim Tumim. That's his opinion. Here. I take about the top. I don't know how to play the puzzle. The Rambam holds that the Urim Tumim is the Choshim. So it doesn't seem that if you're going to play the club, the Urim Tumim is it's one and the same. Yeah. It shined, but it didn't have a battery. No battery. The Urim worked, but there was no chain on fadation. I think I have to sit now. I think Costco, and it had the Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and it had also Abraham Yitzchak Yankee. Abraham Yitzchak Yankee shifted Yeshua. Because there's what they call. Because they're missing a chet and test. The names of the shop don't have aces chet. So they add Abraham, Yitzchak, Shifti, Yeshua. And as a result of this, you had in every single ice, every single stone had 6 letters. For example, God and Don. And only 2 letters, that's 4 other letters. Osher, for example, has 3, so it's 3 other letters. There's exactly 72 oases on Christian on 6 times 12 is 72. And the whole alphabet, and the Kohen would read it. And there was a Ruach HaKodesh, which rested on the Kohen that would teach him what it means, and he would say the answer to the one asking. Yeah. So the woman that it was told. Am Zeres Arge, Zera Rochmei, Ravua Kaf. You look at Chumash. The phone is very, very hot. I don't know. I'm sorry. Zeres is this. Chatzia. This is God. I know, but from here to here is this. The distance near here is this. Okay, now. So those are the Chamisha Dvar, right? The Or Makedish was missing. The Shemin HaMishka was missing. The Senes HaMat was missing. The Mati Adam was missing. And the Urim Tumim. Those are the 5 words. The Ravid was Chamisha Dvar. They were hid the Orim in their hideout. In the secret Kiddush HaKadosh. He had the Urim Tumim, but they didn't have the bracha. They didn't have the Ruach HaKodesh, the Chayah. So according to the other Rishonim, the Rashi was put in a golden plate. Yeah, according to the Rambam, I don't know. If you look at the Ravid asks you a question. Oymen Avrah, the Urim Tumim Ruach HaKodesh, Shnei Dvarim, Min HaChamisha, Om V'Vayeshem, Dvarim Eni Yom Echad. The Ravid disagrees. The Ravid says there was a plate. So the order, it's not a plate, one of the 5 things. Let's finish the halakha. The halakha is. We'll do one more halakha than you start. It's taking us much longer than it should be. One more halakha. The bias nish. In the first place of Mikdash. The first Beis Hamikdash Rabbi side was 30, it was 30, 15 I suppose, by 30. The second Beis Hamikdash was 40 by 20 by 30. The first Beis Hamikdash was bigger than the Mishkan, but it was smaller than the second Beis Hamikdash. The second Beis Hamikdash was very, very, very large. Now if you build walls that are very, very high, they're going to buckle. They're going to fall unless they're very wide. In the first Beis Hamikdash, they built a wall, which is the Holy of Holies. It was an amma thick. It was taller than me. This wasn't deep.
This was the debris. The debris instead of
I'm sorry.
instead of walking, it was the debris. The debris.
The garage. The building.
The debris.
What, the face of the wall?
The wall. Instead of walking.
Okay, called the Z, okay. The Beis Habechirah is called the Z, but okay. Now, the key one to go to Beis Hashem. The book second Beis Habechirah. The start of had to have a shaykh. It may be a case of how you mean as a case. Was the thickness of this wall part of the outer room of the Beis Habechirah, or you need to get the Hakadoshim or from the Holy of Holies? So in the first Beis Habechirah were two rooms. I think it was 30 amos and 10 amos, but I could be wrong. It was a wall. But they didn't have an extra amos. That wall either was part of the 30 amos of the Kodesh, or the other of the Kodesh. Because when they came to build the second Beis Habechirah, they forgot where that wall goes. The Ficha, therefore, also made the Kodesh, they make the Holy of Holies with an extra amos. They asked him amos to give it the Holy of Holies with a complete plan. Also a Kodesh, a boy amos, and the Holy, the Kodesh, was also 40 amos. They nichu amo yeseda, they had an extra amo bein HaKodesh, between the Holy, and bein HaKodesh HaKadoshim and the Holy of Holies. You see, I made a picture. I copied this picture from the Rambam. Yeah, this is 40, and this is 20. Now the picture is long, it's supposed to be a square. This strip here is 1 amo. In the first Beis Hamikdash, this strip was a wall, and it was either part of the amos of the Kodesh or part of the amos of the Heichel. They forgot where it goes, so they added on an extra one. So this is 40 complete plus 1 plus 20 complete. They were 12 hourglasses completed. The lay bonu case of the Vayishin. The second Beis Hamikdash didn't build a wall. Now, why they didn't build a wall? I don't know. My suspicion is that they didn't build a wall, but the room was so tall that if you make a wall this thick, that's 75 feet high, you pretty much collapse. So by default, they can only make 2 curves. And we'll also state what they have 2 curves. Achas is a Kodesh HaKadosh, a little closer to the Holy of Holies. But Achas is a Kodesh, a little closer to the Holy. U'b'neihem Amma, in between the two of them, there was an Amma. Keneged the Ebi HaKesach, so Anya Berisha was corresponding to the thickness of the wall. It wasn't the first Beis Hamikdash. So with 2 curtains. Now you have to imagine, you walk into a room. Yeah, imagine you're the Kohen Gadol. And it's in Kibbutz. Yeah, look. Here. You don't mind looking up. The Kohen Gadol would go into this room with 2 curtains. He'd go to his right, and the slab was pulled back a little bit. He'd walk in between the 2 curtains and walk this way. When he got to this side, where the Holy of Holies, the flap was also pulled back, he would go to the Kodesh HaKadosh and do his business. Then he would back out and walk down this narrow corridor and walk out here. And it was quite dark in the space. It was, if you had claustrophobia issues, that was claustrophobia. The whole area was a spot. And you're carrying very, the Chazal say, Achas HaBenis HaKosher K'hayim HaMikdash was a Kodesh, the Kohen Gadol, and the Kibbutz, the Kodesh HaKadosh. It was a very difficult physically. The Kohen would practice and practice and practice. It was very heavy. He was carrying a 10 shel zahav with three something of the Chol. It was heavy. And he had to navigate all by himself. Nobody could help him. He didn't take us in the regular. The way the Kohen Gadol, you should know, all bets were off. If you want the bias, and the Kohen Gadol shows up and says, I'm in the mood of going to potatoes, there's nothing you can do about it. Kohen Gadol overruled. That was his assignment. Kohen Gadol would do potatoes every single day he wanted. That was halal. That was the deal. Anyway, but he practiced. With practice. He practiced. The first Beis Hamikdash, one person was in the doorway, Shenera, as the Apostle says, Medina operations become the people of the world. The next halachas are measurements. They're meters, they're measurements. I don't want to start today and continue tomorrow. This picture has the measurements east to south and north, east to west, and north to south. There's another picture which is the height of the base. We'll do all of this tomorrow.